Most people think Colorado Springs is all sunshine and rainbows, but after living here for 20 plus years, I can tell you that's not the real story.
There's good,
There's bad,
and there's ugly. Now, this one catches people moving here off guard all the time. The cost of living is definitely and noticeably higher than the national average. I think a lot of people have this perception that Colorado Springs is really cheap, and while it was at one point, that's not the case anymore. It's not Mississippi or Louisiana in its cost of living, that's for sure. We're definitely not California in our cost of living, but we are closer to California than we aren't. High housing cost is what primarily contributes to the cost of living here. We also have higher than average transportation costs, and depending on your source, when you combine those two factors, we end up anywhere from 2 to 5% above the national average. Like I mentioned, the cost of living actually surprises a lot of people moving here. We don't want you to be caught off guard. One of the best things that you can do is download our relocation guide. That's going to have tons of high-level info in there about school districts and zoning and neighborhoods and all that sort of info, but it's also going to have a ton of insider info in there that you can't find anywhere else. The best trails, parks, open spaces, restaurants, and breweries, tons of other things that you don't want to miss. So make sure, click the link below, download that relocation guide.
So what offsets that high cost of living? One of the biggest reasons that people move to Colorado Springs is because the quality of life can't be beat. The Colorado Springs area, the climate, the activities, just all that stuff that people think about when they think about Colorado Springs, that's what I mean when I say quality of life. And honestly, you can even look at it historically. Way back whenever General Palmer founded Colorado Springs, it was going to be this resort destination with this kind of drier atmosphere to help out people's health and all that. It has really kind of just grown from there. And now people today come to Colorado Springs because they want that outdoor lifestyle. They love the idea that they can go skiing in a couple hours. In 20 minutes, they're taking their dog for a walk in the mountains. There's plenty of stuff to do. That's that city life as well. There's, Broadway shows in Denver you can go to. There's shows here in Colorado Springs you can go to. The restaurant scene has started to grow some. So all those things that people just really think about, that's the life I want to have. Colorado Springs offers that to you. And yes, like we said, it does come at a cost. But from somebody that's been here for a while, you cannot beat the quality of life that Colorado Springs overall gives you.
Let's talk traffic and growth. Kind of a sore subject here because for people who have lived here for a long time, we're the ones who've had to deal with the growing pains the most naturally. When I first moved here in 2005, one of our main thoroughfares, Powers and Woodman, was a stop sign. Now it's a 4-lane each-way overpass on the east side of the city. A lot of the growth here was just not well planned, and one of the major complaints about residents in the city have for the city is that developers just kind of get their way. New home development going in, that's fine. Go ahead and throw that thing in. Let's not really think about traffic patterns or, utilities or things like that. Colorado Springs itself has experienced 15% growth in about the last decade. We've added over 100,000 residents since 2010. And so on one hand, the city just wasn't well prepared for that. But also on the other hand, they didn't plan very well for it when it did happen. And so you see traffic patterns just set up in some of the most frustrating ways. Sometimes it has increased commute times. And I get it, while it's not LA or Atlanta or, some other city like that where it takes an hour to get anywhere, it still is something for residents who have lived here for a long time. It's still a point of frustration.
Job growth is real, and it's bringing a lot of people to Colorado Springs. The economy of Colorado Springs is one that's kind of, I guess I would say it's largely recession-proof, and that's really because of the military and defense contracting infrastructure, if you will, that's here in Colorado Springs. So for decades and decades, Colorado Springs has had an economy that's had good paying jobs, I would even say higher paying jobs than the national average for sure. And they're jobs that are just solid because there's a lot of federal government jobs here in the area. Now, is that kind of changing as the times change? Maybe will a little bit, but the city as a whole has done a great job of bringing in other sections of the economy now. So now there's a lot of tech that's come to Colorado Springs. We've always had tourism, service-based industry jobs. We've always had a lot of that. But now, in addition to those stable military jobs and the federal defense contracting jobs, again, high-paying jobs, now we're starting to see a big influx of cybersecurity, like I mentioned, tech industry jobs that are coming to Colorado Springs. So it almost seems like just about every other day you're reading something in the news about a major company is either expanding their current footprint here or they're moving some type of headquarters or like an HQ2 to Colorado Springs because of, like we talked about, a great quality of life that people really enjoy. It's financially a friendly place for a lot of these companies compared to where they're at right now. There's a lot of tech companies that I read about that are coming to the Colorado area from California just because it's a little bit more friendly business environment than what it is in some other areas. And that's continuing to draw young professionals. And it's kind of this snowball effect that we see where young professionals come in, there's some entrepreneurs, they do another startup. So we're seeing a lot of businesses from startups to mid-level to high-level large companies like Lockheed Martin and Boeing continue to grow their footprint in Colorado Springs. And like I mentioned, these aren't minimum wage jobs. These are high-paying, six-figure jobs, a lot of them that are supporting our economy and not just kind of stabilizing in kind of this time of uncertainty, but really helping the Colorado Springs economy continue to grow and really honestly be a destination place for a lot of companies across the country. Now, people don't always mention this when they're trying to hype up Colorado Springs, and it's crime, and it is a real factor here in the city, but it largely depends on what part of Colorado Springs you're in. And it's also really hard to get accurate crime information. You read these reports online, but it's usually a couple years old. Colorado Springs has grown really fast, so is that data still accurate right now? So I'm going to tell you a couple things that really impact me and how I feel about it. So a lot of people are more familiar with Denver. Maybe they visited Denver, or maybe some people currently live in Denver right now that are watching this. Colorado Springs has about a 30 to 35% lower crime rate than what Denver does. It varies depending on what type of crime we're talking about, but overall, it's lower here than what it is in Denver. So that just kind of gives you a little bit of a point of reference. It's also lower than most similar sized cities across the country, but it doesn't mean that crime doesn't exist. If you look at the Colorado Springs Police Department, if you just Google their website, they actually have a crime tracker on there, and it's got little dots all over the map, and you can really get a good idea of what parts of town have a higher rate of certain types of crime, maybe higher violent crime than like property crime and things of that nature. So you can use that as a resource because that's real-time information versus some of the news articles you might see on like US News or something like that. So I encourage people to like really do the research on the specific areas because it's just like any city of the size of Colorado Springs, it's going to vary a lot depending on what part of town you're in. There's some other factors too. Colorado Springs has I-25, major interstate that runs from the southern border all the way up into, Wyoming, Montana. So it's a major north-south thoroughfare. So you get a little bit more traffic crime, especially during holiday times, stuff like that. So there's some other factors in Colorado Springs that do affect the crime. But the biggest thing that I want to just tell everybody is do your research on specific areas and just know, again, I've lived here for 20 years all over the city of Colorado Springs. I can tell you I've never had any major issues with crime. I've lived on the west side of town, in the middle of town, on the east side, now up in Black Forest, and I've never had any major situations that made me or my family feel unsafe. So yes, do your research. You're going to hear about crime in Colorado Springs, but also know that it's probably not as bad as what some of the stuff you read.
So another saying here for the longest time was keep Colorado Springs lame. In fact, if you visit, you'll probably still see those bumper stickers around town that say keep Colorado Springs lame. Here's the thing, it's not lame anymore. I think it's actually one of the most unique places I've ever been, and I've lived all over the country prior to my 20 years here, all over this state, and there are just so many different things going on that you don't see anywhere else. For starters, we have an incredible farmers market with several locations that usually start up right around Memorial Day and run all the way through Labor Day, sometimes a week or two on either end. And we also have some of the wildest events that I've ever seen here. The Pikes Peak Ascent, where people literally run up Pikes Peak. The Pikes Peak International Hill Climb, where we have everything from super fitted motorcycles to F1 cars racing up Pikes Peak. Yes, racing without guardrails in most of those areas. Territory days. The growing food scene with all sorts of locally owned restaurants that Chris had previously mentioned. Our growing entertainment scene here with Widener Field, Ford Amphitheater drawing in some of the bigger acts around the world. And then the friendly people here just make Colorado Springs a warm, welcoming, and exciting place to be.
If you spend any time at all here, you'll notice it. Homelessness is just part of the reality in Colorado Springs, and it's something that the city's still trying to figure out. Now, I can tell you it's much different, and I think better than what it was just a few years ago. The city's done a lot to pass, I guess I'll say, laws and ordinances that really kind of have helped the situation from kind of the public view perspective. So they put in place no panhandling laws. So it used to be downtown Colorado Springs on Tejon, Cascade, Nevada. Every corner, unfortunately, it was just to the point where it was very frustrating to go downtown. Sometimes it wasn't very comfortable. It was just kind of a pain to walk around downtown. So the city's done a lot to kind of up the enforcement, if you will, in the downtown area to make sure that there's not panhandling on every corner. And it's not just in the downtown area. Major intersections across Colorado Springs, even out on the east side of town, there were panhandlers out all the time, and now there's signage up. And again, just the enforcement has become a lot more, I guess, stringent for the panhandling aspect of it, which in turn has kind of just, I say it has helped things, but it's hard to say exactly how much it's helped. It's just kind of maybe made it a little less noticeable to the general public. Now, the other thing that I think Colorado Springs should be really proud of when it comes to this issue is that there are a ton of private organizations, a lot of faith-based organizations that have shelters for homeless people, that they have programs to try to help these folks out to really get them back on their feet. And just, we all know how this problem goes. Unfortunately, there's a lot of those folks that just don't want to take advantage of those programs, or for whatever reason, they don't take advantage of them. And they kind of just, they stay in this life of homelessness, which then they have to be somewhere in the city of Colorado Springs. So they've kind of migrated around to, other parts, largely on the west side of Colorado Springs primarily. But the city really is trying to find a good solution for everyone involved to help keep the citizens feel safe, to help the city look beautiful, and then also to help the folks that are homeless right now, just kind of get back on their feet and get into a good position in life. And I've been personally affected by this because with our office building, we bought a building in downtown Colorado Springs, and literally the day after we closed on it, we had a break-in from a homeless individual that did some damage to the property. So I've kind of seen that negative side of it. And then I've also done some volunteer work with some of the shelters across town to try to help these folks out. And so I've kind of seen it from their perspective as well. So it's one of those problems. It's not unique to Colorado Springs, but it is something that just you do see in Colorado Springs. It's not something where it's detrimental to your day-to-day life. That is definitely not the case. I am working in areas across Colorado Springs where there are just probably the homeless population is a little bit more than it is in other places. And I'm in those areas every day almost. And again, it's not something where it really has a big negative effect. I think just some people get caught off guard a little bit by it because they don't expect it, or maybe they just haven't seen it where they currently live at. So it is a factor to kind of just, consider and think about a little bit if you're interested in Colorado Springs, but just know at the end of the day that the city has a really good path forward to try to kind of help the situation out from both sides of it, from everyone's perspective, and it's really not going to affect your day-to-day life in Colorado Springs.
Layer, layer, layer. That's the name of the game when it comes to weather here. Weather really can be so unpredictable. Another saying we have here in the region is if you don't like the weather, just wait 15 minutes. For instance, last year, Colorado Springs had 14 hail reports within 10 miles of the city center. Fountain, just to the south of us, had over 170 hail reports in that same year. The weather can vary wildly across the entire region, and even sometimes within the day. Sometimes we'll get 6 inches of snow overnight, and by noon that day, or the next day, the snow's completely gone. Sometimes we'll get 3 straight days of snow and temperature in the negative teens, and then all of a sudden that snow disappears for an entire month. What I'm getting at here is while we do have some sort of sunshine for 300 days out of the year, yes, that stat is true. The weather here can feel wildly inconsistent. Remember, if you want all the info on Colorado Springs from true insiders who have lived here for over 20 years, download our relocation guide in the link below. It's free to you, and you're going to get info you can't find anywhere else. The natural beauty here is unparalleled and unlike any other city that I've ever been to or lived in. According to the Public Land Trust, Colorado Springs has 317 parks and over 9,000 acres. Yes, 9,000 acres of open space inside of the city. Where else can you find that? One of my favorite parks in the city, Palmer Park, by itself is 730 acres and has 25 miles of hiking trails throughout it. Garden of the Gods, a national tourist attraction that you see pictures of all the time when you Google Colorado Springs, is a city park set right in the heart of the city. I mean, you get into some of these parks and it feels like you've just stepped onto public land way out in the middle of nowhere until you crest the hill and realize you're still in the heart of the city. Where else can you find that? I haven't found it anywhere else. If you have, drop a comment below. Not to mention there's no shortage of adventure here, right? We are anywhere from an hour and 45 minutes to 2.5 hours away from some of the best skiing in the world. Breckenridge and Vail, just up Highway 70 or Interstate 70, right about 2.5 hours. You can get to Monarch in just under 2 hours on the right day. And if you're really looking for a thrill, you don't even have to go that far. You can hike right up Pikes Peak and do some wild backcountry skiing right there. And if that risk level is a little bit too high for you, well, you can drive a 20-mile road to the top of Pikes Peak at just over 14,000 feet in elevation. It is almost natural beauty overload. So if the outdoor beauty and adventure is your thing, you're going to feel right at home here.
So it's not just the traffic and the growth in Colorado Springs. Colorado Springs as a city has some deeper social concerns or issues that are a little bit more prevalent now than what they used to be. So really, there's two main ones that come to mind when I think about this. And the first one is just with the revitalization and growth that Colorado Springs has seen lately all across the city, there's going to be some folks that just aren't real happy with it. And there's going to be some people that are ecstatic about it. And it kind of just creates this conflict a little bit. There's some of the feeling of not in my backyard. You've probably heard of that before, where people don't like the development close to them, but the city continues to grow. So then you have people that move into that area that the people that have been there for a while kind of have this conflict with. And then also just parts of town and this isn't unique to Colorado Springs either, but just as older parts of town continue to get revitalized, a lot of times that what has to happen is older homes or structures get bulldozed and new stuff gets built. And well, there were probably folks that were maybe renting those homes and that was their place of residence, but then they got sold to a developer. So now you have folks that have this kind of just this ill feelings towards the development and the growth and to the previous owners of those properties, because now that was their place to live. They probably caught a home for years, and now they have to find a different place to have as their residence. So you kind of have this confliction of just a lot of good things that come from the revitalization of older parts of Colorado Springs, but then you also have to take into account the people that are affected negatively by those revitalization efforts, and it just creates these social issues that we've seen a little bit more in Colorado Springs recently than we ever have before. But again, it's really because the city is just continuing to grow, and you have this revitalization that takes effect all over Colorado Springs. And then the second one that I think that a lot of people have, I guess I'll say honestly, a little bit of a misconception now of Colorado Springs being this conservative mecca, if you will. For decades and decades, that's really how it was. Huge military population, typically a little bit more conservative folks. A lot of faith-based organizations have their headquarters here, so again, more conservative people. But as Colorado Springs has continued to grow over the last decade, there's been a big shift in that paradigm, I guess, if you will. So now it's not as if it's a very to use political colors, we'll say it's not a very blue place, it's not a very red place anymore. It's really just very, very purple. And what we see in Colorado Springs, and especially certain parts of town, is that's kind of created a little bit of friction between folks that have been here for quite a while, new folks that are moving into town with just some different ideals. And again, we know this isn't unique to Colorado Springs. We're seeing this as a nation right now across the country. So you just do see it in Colorado Springs a little bit right now. But what I will say, and what I think is the encouraging thing about it, is there's not really this this negative or this super confrontational effect that we're seeing. Again, there's a little bit of friction here and there, but for the most part, it's still a great community of folks that, even though there's a lot of differing views now compared to what there used to be, people talk about it. People have open conversations about it. And I think it's kind of become a good thing for the city to have these different perspectives on different issues that have come up, to really find problems that solve it, that can make as big a group of people as happy as possible. So yes, Colorado Springs, like every city of its size, has its social issues, but I feel that the city's doing a really good job, and just the populace as a whole, of recognizing those differences and really just kind of almost coming together with it, versus having it be this huge negative thing that has a negative impact on the city as a whole. And that is the truth about Colorado Springs.
If those good, bad, and uglies didn't scare you away and you're still thinking about making the move, make sure you check out this video where Chris breaks down every single area in Colorado Springs in detail.